So why don't we get ahead of the process? So as I fire here and I get that click, when the gun gets ready, my finger gets ready too. Because I can't do anything until that slide comes back down.
The Mantis X10 firearms performance system is an invaluable training tool for shooters of all levels to make themselves better with their defensive firearms.
Hey guys, welcome to Mantis Dry Fire Monday, and you're on Active Self-Protection Extra. I am Brian Hill with The Complete Combatant, and we're going to talk about the worst habit that I see all over the country. It is so insidious. I try to get it stopped on the line as soon as I can, but boy is it tough to change because there are apparently a lot of people teaching this habituation that doesn't serve people incredibly well. You're wondering what I'm talking about. I'm talking about pinning the trigger. And the worst thing for a coach like myself is not only can I see it, but I can hear it. Okay? And whenever we go into accuracy mode, the pinner comes out really strong. But let's talk about why it's a bad habit. Instead of just saying you shouldn't do this, let's talk about the reason that it's bad. Okay? Let me get my firearm out here so you guys can see. Okay? Check with me. Fantastic. Good. All right, so now you can see my finger here. What people do when they pin is they press and they hold this to the rear. Now I've got a 300-foot berm in that direction, so everything's fine. Now the gun cycles itself. So the pistol cycles, and then what they do is they let it out, feeling like they're right at the wall, but they're still, see that little bit of prep? I still had to come back and prep the trigger again to get it ready to fire. Then I have to move through, let it fire. Gun cycles, slowly let it out, try not to lose contact, prep the trigger again, and go. That's 4 steps by my count, all right? Pin, release, prep, shoot. Now, people that don't pin do this, okay? And I'm going to use some folksy wisdom from the fantastic shooter Jerry Mikulik. And he said the problem with pinning is you're aiming with a dead gun. People always feel like they're a better aimer when they hold it to the rear. Now they're doing all this aiming, but you can't fire the gun. So any aiming you did will be wrecked by you moving your finger again. So why don't we get ahead of the process? So as I fire here and I get that click, when the gun gets ready, my finger gets ready too. Because I can't do anything until that slide comes back down. All right, until that firearm comes back down and I can see that dot. Then I'm going to prep and keep moving through the wall. And then as it fires, I release the trigger, flip it, and prep it again. So I'm ahead of it. So I'm going to have prep, shoot, release. It's only 3 steps. Now that's fast. 3 steps is faster than 4 steps. All right, let's talk about numbers that I see all the time. Pinners tend to shoot 0.9 to 1 O's. That's how long it takes them to shoot another shot. All right, people that don't pin tend to be in the 0.15 to 0.25 before they fire another shot relative to the size of the target. All right, so small, medium, large targets, that's what makes different targets at different distances or something in the way, or if they're moving, that'll all change that. But the pinning is a significantly slow habit, all right? But it's a feeling of control. Here's the real big problem. It leads to dead triggers, okay? Because people don't want to lose contact with their trigger, so when they let it out slowly, they don't let it out enough, and then they try to mash it again like I just did. That habit costs people usually about 3/4 of a second to reset the trigger. Now, human beings work in a certain pattern. Good fighters can throw 5 punches per second. Olympic sprinters take 5 steps per second. And good shooters shoot about 5 shots per second. There are exceptions in punchers and sprinters and shooters where they do 6 per second. So that really matters. That number matters. And that would be at a close, large target. But if I'm not doing anything and I'm holding the trigger to the rear, as I do this, and now the gun gets ready, and I aim while I'm doing this, and I slowly let it out. If I don't let it out enough, it's going to be a dead trigger, okay? And I'm still going to have to prep it. So why don't I simply relax and get back to the release and reset the trigger and then start to prep it, keep it moving as I break through the wall. The prep is in relationship to the speed of the trigger finger, all right? So if I got a big target, I don't really need prep. I can just move my finger at its fastest speed on a big target. So say I have an 8-inch circle at 5 yards, man, I'm going to be moving that finger as fast as it goes. Do I care that it loses contact with the trigger? No, because I got the support hand. Support hand's simply going to hold it in its place. Now, if I got a smaller target, I need to be a bit more careful with my aiming process. I got to make sure the dot's floating in there. But when I press the trigger, what I'm going to do is feel a little bit more, okay? So I may move it at a slower speed, but I'm going to really feel. I'm not going to be slamming through it. But it doesn't mean I have to keep my finger on the trigger. I have to go all the way out to reset. And if I'm shooting a really small target, like an ocular zone or a long distance target at 25 yards, I'm really going to take up that trigger and feel it all the way through. But when it cycles, I'm going to release and do the same thing again and get back to the front of the prep. Okay, that should help you a lot. It's a simple way to do it. Don't aim with a dead gun. Get back to the prepping process so that the trigger can break, all right, and then fire a good shot. The Mantis is great for this, especially in live fire, because you're going to look at that graph and watch how you prep the trigger and how long it took you to do things. Whenever we pin to the rear, the problem is you may have a 4-pound trigger, but you're putting 8 to 12 pounds of pressure into the frame. So what does that do to the shot? If I pin it, did you see my muzzle? Which way did it go? All right, that time it went down. Now what if I'm really doing it deliberately? It tends to go up. And that's what we're going to see the difference between the two, okay? Is either the muzzle goes up or down, and we're putting all that pressure in the frame and it doesn't serve us. So always press the trigger lightly, but you can do it as quick as you want. You can do it as precise as you want, as carefully as you want, to use Tom Gibbons' language, all right? But it's about how light we do it. Don't put pressure into the frame. Don't pin the trigger on a pistol because it's going to move quickly anyway. Came out of precision rifles. It's got no place in pistols, all right? Longer barrels, it takes a longer time for the bullet to exit. So when the primer is struck by the firing pin and the bullet ignites, we want to stay real still so we don't move at all. But that's not how pistols work. It's almost an instantaneous effect with a 4-inch barrel. So as the gun's getting ready, get yourself ready to shoot again, and don't be aiming with a dead gun like Jerry Mikulek said. I hope that helps you out, guys. It's a great habit to overcome, but boy, is it tough to break, all right? And you're going to want to fight it, especially if somebody you really respect told you that. But remember, we're always improving. You know, one of the places that I heard a lot about this was Claude Warner, because he was a chief instructor at Rogers. Rogers targets disappear. So anything that cost you time, you simply couldn't do because there would be no target to shoot. So they really got ahead of this process and got to the front of the cycle instead of the rear. The real problem with pinning is it's a rear cycle and it starts to the front. The nice thing about prepping is it's the front of the shoot cycle and allows you to shoot sooner and with more accuracy. And everybody wants to be more accurate and more efficient so they can perform better under pressure. All right, try it on your Mantis. Get to work. I'm Brian Hill with The Complete Combatant, and this has been Active Self-Protection Extra. Thanks for tuning in, and I hope that helps you.